Hey everyone, welcome back to the MobileSpace video tutorial series. So in this video, we're going to be working on Milestone 2 of our MovieGuide iOS app. In the last video, we finished Milestone 1, which was to build a movie table view along with a custom UI table view cell, as well as a detailed view controller. And this week, we're going to be working on Milestone 2, which is to make an API call and get a response object, as well as store this in a relevant data model. So let's look at where we left off last week. So this is the project from last week. Let me give it a run. MovieGuide. So this is what we have. We pretty much have a table view which has the same title and image. And when you click on it, it takes you to this detail view, which has a background poster, the title, as well as the overview. So this week, we're going to be working on making that API call, hitting the endpoint, getting movies from the API, then populating the table view with those movies. So let's jump right in. I've also created a bunch of helper code right here, which I'm going to be uploading to GitHub as well. I'm going to be copy pasting a lot of this code in the interest of time. So feel free to sort of look at this Word doc, and you can get the code from here as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is to get the two pod files that I need. We're going to be using Alamo Fire to make our API call. So if I'm in my working directory right here, so I'm going to go into my project folder. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do pod init, which is going to initialize a pod file for me. And now I can open the pod file. I'm going to open up the pod file with Sublime. And right in here, I'm going to insert the two pods, save it, and now I can do pod install. So before I do that, I actually have this open, so let me close that. Stop tasks, all right, that's fine. Okay, and now I can do pod install to install the pods for me. Great, so now that I have those pods installed, an important thing to note is once you start using pods, it creates a workspace, .xcode workspace for you. And that's the file that you want to open up every single time going forward. So now in here, I can see that I have this pods folder along with the pod file. And if I click on the pods, I see there are two pods here as well. So let's see where we are. So in the view controller, I'm going to Command-Shift-K to clean it and build it. I'm going to give it a test run to make sure it was able to import the pods properly. So if I run it, okay, great. That looks good. It's just that it's the 6S Plus. So let me just run it on the 6S. All right, great. So it was able to get the pods properly and it runs now. So that's awesome. So we're going to start with our view controller file, and I'm going to use my helper file here. Let's see, which file am I on? I'm on the view controller. So the first thing I'm going to do is import Alamo Fire. And once I do that, I'm also going to get this API key. So for the URL that I'm going to be hitting, it's I have this URL right here, which is this one, and at the end of it, it needs an API key. So what I've done with this here is I've created a variable with an API key, which I can use across the entire class. Okay, what's next? So next, I'm going to be creating a variable movies, which is pretty much an array of our movie object. We don't have our movie object yet, so it's going to complain, but we're going to create a movie class pretty soon, which is going to be our model. Okay, and so once we do that, we're going to create a function called makeAPICall, and we're going to call it in our viewDidLoad method. So as soon as the app opens up, it's going to make an API call. And the function for make API call is right here, so I'm going to grab it. and I'm going to paste it right here. So even though I'm going to be using this file to copy and paste a lot of code, like I'll go over it and explain it, just so that we're not just mindlessly copying code. Okay, so as I said, as soon as the app opens up, it's going to call the make API call, and this function is going to get called. So here what we're doing is we're using this method that comes with AlmoFire. So we're doing AlmoFire.request. And the first parameter is what kind of a request it is. Is it a GET or a PUT request? In this case, it's a GET request, followed by the URL that we're going to hit. So this is the endpoint, API.themovies database, movies and the now playing, as well as at the end of it, we're going to give it the API key. So we're doing API key, and this is string interpolation, which basically lets us insert some code within the string. So this is going to get the API key from up here, and it's going to put the API key in there. Okay, and then .response.json is also a method on AlmoFire, which sort of helps us parse the JSON if we know that it's JSON coming in. And a lot of this code, it's not that I wrote it myself. I pretty much got it from the AlmoFire docs. So if you look it up, you can get a bunch of sample code that you can start working on. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm getting the value out of the response. So I'm doing response.result.value, and I'm saving it in a variable called JSON. What I'm doing next is I'm saying I'm getting the status code out of that JSON. So let me show you what the request looks like, right? So if I get this URL, and then if I look at it in my browser, you can see exactly the JSON that's coming back when you hit that API endpoint. Great. So this is what it looks like. It has a page, it has results. The results has all the movies within it. If you can see here, this one right here tells us that it's an array, and this curly brackets tells us that it's a dictionary. So from this, what we can know is that the results is an array of dictionaries, and each dictionary is a movie. So if you can see here, it says original title is the title of the movie. It has backdrop path, it has overview, it has poster path. We're going to grab a few fields from this, which we think we need, and we're going to save it in our own model, which is going to be the movie model. So the results is an array of dictionaries where each dictionary is a movie. It also has dates, it has total pages and total results. So this is when the API was hit successfully. Say for instance I changed the API key. So now the request is no longer valid. And now you'll see that it gives us a status message, a success, true or false, as well as a status code. So with that, what I can do is that in my code, what I'm doing is I'm saying if status code exists, then I want to print out an error, because the only time that the status code would exist, would exist is if I did not hit the right endpoint, right? So if I go back to the original API key, in this case there is no status code, as you can see here. So I'm using that as a check to see if I was successfully able to get the results. So I'm saying if status code, if status code does exist, then print out the error. If it doesn't exist, that means I was able to successfully hit the API. And in that case, I'm processing the JSON that I get as well as reloading the data. So this line, we'll come back to it because as you can see here, I'm using a function movies on our movie class. So the movies is a class function, and we're going to be creating our movie model pretty soon. So let's comment this out for now and we'll come back to it. Okay, great. So that is the make API call. So that's looking good. Let's see what else we have here. So make API call, all right, that's looking good. And then prepare for Segue. We're gonna come back and do that. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out the results that I get. So we're not going to create the movie model yet. Let's just print out the results that we get to make sure that we were first able to at least hit the API and get the results that we want. Okay, so let's see if we have any errors here. So AlmoFire, I think clean and build should fix it. Build failed. There we go, undeclared type movie, that's fine. Let me comment that code out as well because I don't need it right now. And okay, so let's give this a run and see if we're able to hit our API successfully. All right, and if you look at our output, we see that there's a bunch of code here, right? So this is printing out the results from our API request. So this results right here. So as you can see for my print statement, what I'm doing is I'm saying print JSON of results, right? So JSON is my variable which has this entire JSON in it, and which is a dictionary, and then I'm printing just the results array, right? So over here in my print statement, you can see that it printed out all the movies just as you can see here. So that means that just with a few lines of code, we were using AlmoFire, we were easily able to hit our API endpoint and get the results. So now the second part of this milestone is to process this results in a meaningful way. So we're going to be creating a model object for a movie, which is going to have a few fields which are only necessary to us. And then we're going to use that model object to save all our movies in a variable, and then use that to display in our table view. So now that we have this, I think the next thing we should do is to create our movie model. So we're going to create a new file, and this time it's going to be of type NSObject. We're going to call it movie because this is our model. I'm going to click next and create. Great. So I created a movie, and then let's look at our helper to see what code we need for a movie. So in the movie, the first thing I'm going to do is base URL. So base URL we're going to be using this for our poster path as well as for our background path poster. So this is in our responses, you can see the poster path is pretty much an extension of the file, right? So it's like it doesn't have the full URL in it. So what I need to do is I need to first append the poster path on it, and then at the end of it I can copy paste the extension, and that will give me and that will give me my poster. Great. So that is why I need the base image URL. The next thing I'm going to do is to create our the properties on our object that we need, right, on our class. So in this case, I'm going to be using 4 fields. The first one is the poster path, the poster URL. So that's this one right here. I'm also going to be using the movie title, which is the title of the movie. And then on our detail view, I'm going to be using the movie overview, which is this overview right here, as well as the movie backdrop URL. So it's this image right here. I see there's a couple typos. There shouldn't be that. Okay, great. So these are the properties on my movie object. And next I'm going to get this init function, which is pretty much going to help me initialize my movie object, initialize my movie instance. So copy that, paste it. Great. So the init function, it does a couple things. I'm just going to correct that. There shouldn't be a W there. Correct that, as well as that, and one more over there. All right. Is there something else? Oh, right over there. Okay. So the init function, as you can see, it takes a dictionary, and then what it does with the dictionary is it grabs the information that it needs and assigns it to the properties of our particular class, right? So in this case, what we're doing is we're saying if let movie poster URL string, we're grabbing the poster path, and then for the movie poster URL, we're saying that it has to be an NS URL. And for this, and for the string, we're saying append the base image URL to the movie poster URL string, right? So the thing that I just talked about, where you have to have this first and then add it and then have the extension at the end of it. We're doing the same thing for backdrop path, and then we're grabbing title and overview. And then we're initializing all of these over here, right? So the next thing that we're going to do is to get this function. So this is So this is a function on the class itself. So as you can see here, it says class function. And so what we can do with this is we can say movie, which is our class. We don't need an instance with it, right? So we can say movie.movies and then pass in the array of dictionaries. So this takes an array, which is an array of dictionary, and returns an array of movie. So movie is our class right here, so it's our model object. So we're going to return an array of movies. So in here we're creating a local variable, which is variable movies, which is an array of movie. And then here we're saying for dictionary in array. So the array, just to sort of go over it again, from what we're getting back is this, right? So it's the entire results array. So this is an array of dictionaries, as I mentioned earlier. What we're doing with this for loop, let me just get this. What we're doing with this for loop is we're saying for dictionary in array. So it's going to grab every single dictionary out of this array, and then we're going to do something with the dictionary. And then we're saying let movie is movie of dictionary, and then we're passing a dictionary. So this is the init method up here. This is how you would call an init method on a class. We say movie, which is the name of the class, and then we pass in the dictionary or whatever parameter we need to pass, right? So in this case, we're passing the dictionary, which is going to be the JSON, or which is going to be the dictionary of every single movie that we get from our API. So when the dictionary goes through here, it's an NS dictionary, right? So now you're able to grab the poster path, backdrop path, title, and overview from this. So it's going to grab this, poster path, overview, title, and backdrop path. Great. And then it's going to initialize a new movie and then return it as a movie, as an instance of the movie class, right? So now let movie is now an instance of our movie class with all of those properties set. Finally, what we're doing is we're saying movies.append movie. So movies was our local variable, and then we're going to be adding in our each of our movies into that array, and then at the end of it, we're returning movies. So movies finally is an array of movie objects. So from this method, we were able to convert an array of dictionaries into an array of movies. And within here, we used movie dictionary, which was an init method to create an instance of a movie and then append it to the movies array. Great. So that is looking good. So now that we have our movie model, what we can do is we can uncomment these lines, right? So now we have our movie model. So we can say variable movies is an array of movie, right? Which makes sense. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to say return movies.count or return 0. Oops, all right, or return 0. Right? Fuck, I'm forgetting the syntax. I think that's it. Okay, or return 0. And then for our table view, what we can say is we no longer need this because these are static, right? What we can say is we can say cell movie cell. Okay, so we're going to come back to that. And then here we can uncomment this. And now we have self.movies is movies.movies. So this is the class function class method that I was talking about, right? So if I command click on it, it takes me to this method right here and the one that we just talked about. So we're passing it JSON results, which is an array of dictionaries where each dictionary is a movie. And what this is returning is it's returning an array of movie objects. So it's going to assign that to self.movies and it's going to reload the table view, right? So actually, let me just command Z that. Okay, and then let me do this. And then at the end of it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say print, just to make sure that we were able to run that successfully. I'm going to say print movies.count. Let's change that. Never mind. Yeah, let that be there. That's fine. Print movies.count. Okay. So if I run this, we should see print movies.count be the number of movies that we have that we're getting from our API response, right? So as you can see here, there's 20, and so this was this returned 20 movies, and we were able to successfully create movie objects out of it and add it into our movies array, which is up here, which has an array of movies. And now the next step would be to use these array of movies in our table view to display the movies, right? Okay, so let's see what we have here. So we so this was good. So we created the movie model. Next, let's do the movie cell. Okay, so we only have a movie cell file, a .swift file here. The only thing we're going to do is we're going to add a did set method where we can pretty much, which gives us some capabilities of initializing and assigning the cell without actually having to do it in our Viewcontroller file. So I'm going to grab this code out of here and paste it right there. And as you can see here, the titles, the variable names are a bit different. It's called poster image view, which is what that is, and then it's called title label, which is what that is. Okay, so this pretty much lets us pass a movie, and then this one grabs the title as well as the image out of it and then sets it on the movie cell. Okay, and the way we would use this now is in our cell we can pretty much say, we can say cell.movie is equal to movie of index path dot row. Oops, I mean movies of index path dot row. All right. Okay, and so now what this is going to do is for every movie, it's going to grab it and set it out of this. So if I run this, we should be able to see the table view have all the movies that we get. There we go. So a couple of these don't have images, and that's why you're seeing the Martian right here too. There's Magnificent Seven. I am seeing something that's wrong though. What I am seeing is it says Magnificent 7 here, and then if I scroll down further, it says Magnificent 7 again, even though the title is different. That makes me think that I'm not setting the movie correctly, the movie type, the poster somewhere. So let me look at that. Movie.movie poster URL, set image, reflect poster image URL, set image URL, movie poster image URL. Yeah, so that's, I think that looks good to me. In the movie poster image URL, dictionary of poster path, movie poster URL, paste image URL. Let me run that again. See, I'm not sure what is up with that. Let me run it again. Dude, that's really strange. MovieGuide. Interesting. Okay, so I'm not sure why that's happening. That's definitely a bug somewhere. We'll have to come back to that. At the end of this video, if you have time, we'll come back and try to resolve that. Okay, so let's move right along. Poster path. Okay, so what else do we need here? So now that we have this, we're going to be working on this detail view where when you click on this particular cell, now we want to pass just that movie onto this detail view controller. and then set the background, the title, and then the overview as well. Okay, so let me get rid of this. I don't need that. Let me get rid of that. I don't need that. And I'll have to create a new file. So I'm going to say new file, touch class, and this is going to be of type UI view controller, and I'm going to call it movie detail controller. Next. Okay, so let's create that. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to associate it with the view in our storyboard. So I'm going to say movie detail view controller, and once that's done, I'm going to make the connections. So create outlets. So over here I can do that. I can say backdrop image view. I can say title label, as well as overview label. Okay. So once we have that, let's look at our helper code and see what we need for that. Okay, so the first thing we need is a local variable which we're going to pass the movie through, called movie. It's of type movie, and in our view.load, we're going to, once we have that movie, we're going to assign each of these things to what it's supposed to be. So title label, overview label, and movie backdrop path URL is backdrop image view, right? That's what it's called. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's close out of there and figure out what's going on here. So movie overview, right? It's the typo overview. Okay, and then also let me get the Alamo Fire image, because I'm going to be using the set image with URL method. Okay, so that's good. And then the final step is, in our view controller, we need a way to pass the movie information onto the next view controller. So for that, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the prepare for segue method on our view controller. So that's our final method over here, prepare for segue. Oops. Let's copy that and paste it. Okay. And prepare for segue is one of two ways of passing information to a different view controller. The first one is using a delegate pattern, which can be used to pass information to various parts of your app. Another sort of simple way is if you're, in this case, if you're just going from one view controller forward to another view controller, we can use the prepare for segue method where we know that there's a segue from this cell to this detail view. So we're going to pass that information along this segue. And the way you do that is by using this prepare for segue, right? So within this, what we're doing is we're saying, let's cell equals sender as UI table view cell. So we know that the person that is sending the information is a UI table view cell, right? Because only when you click on a cell do you want to pass that information. So we know that the sender is a cell. So we have the cell. Let me mute that. All right. And then the next thing we're doing is we're going to grab the index path for that cell, because we need to exactly nail down which movie the person clicked on. So we're going to do let index path is table view dot index path for cell and cell. So this way, by passing a cell, the table view lets us get the index path of that particular cell. And finally, we're going to grab the movie out of that cell. So we're going to say movie is movies, which is our array of movies, for indexpath.row. So that's the particular index path that the index path.row that the user clicked on. And now we can grab that movie out of our movies array. And the final thing we're going to do is we're going to get an instance of our movies controller. In this case, it's not movie controller, but it is movie detail controller. And let's rename that as well, movie detail controller, and that as well. Finally, okay. So we're grabbing an instance of movie detail view controller. We're doing Segue our destination view controller, and we know that it's a movie detail view controller. And finally, we're saying movie detail view controller.movie equal to this movie. So what we're doing here is now we have in this variable movie, we have the specific movie that we're talking about, right? So we're going to pass that information, that particular movie, into our movie detail controller.movie. So it's this variable right here. We're going to assign it in there. So now what happens is when you come here, movie has all the information it needs. So when it goes through the view.load method, it's able to grab the information out of it and just display it in our detail view controller. Okay, great. So let's give this a run. All right, MovieGuide. And then if you click on one of them, all right, so we're seeing that the image is definitely not being set, the title is being set, and the overview is being set. I have a feeling something's going wrong with the image, and I'm not sure what. That is interesting. Okay, all right. So that is looking good. The Blair Witch and the movie as well. All right. With the URL, I wonder what's going on. Okay. We'll come back and debug that, right? So just to sort of wrap it up, we were able to first. So what we did is first in our view controller, we were able to make an API call really easily and get the response from our API call, right? So we used Alamo Fire. And we used this AlamoFire.request method to basically put in the URL, and we told it what kind of request it was. That was a GET request, and then we were able to process, in this case, the information in a specific way, where we said, hey, if status code doesn't exist, then that means I know that it's a successful call. If I know it's a successful call, I was able to create a class method on the movie object where I passed the array of dictionaries and which returned an array of movie objects to me, which I assigned it into our movie and then reloaded the data. When I do reload data, both of these delegate method gets called, and so what it does is saying return movie.count. So now our movies has all the movies it needs. So it's going to display as many rows as there are movies, as well as in our self-error index path. We were able to create a didSet method on our movie cell. I'm sorry, on our movie cell, that guy, which basically grabbed the information that it needed from the movie that we were assigning it to, and set its image as well as the title, and then we returned the cell. What we also did is we created a prepare for segue method in our view controller, where when a user clicks on a particular cell, we pass just that movie, which is this right here, this guy right here, onto the next view controller, which was our movie detail controller, and then we assign it to it. So now when it goes to the movie detail view controller, this was our second view controller, this one right here. It's able to grab the information that it needs, such as the movie title, the movie overview, and set it to the appropriate outlets. The title label, the overview label, as well as the image. I think I know what's going on here, because I think this is not being called, if I'm not mistaken. So print here. What I also want to do is I want to print movie backdrop URL. Okay, so that's just a couple steps that I'm going to use to debug. Let's sort of finish up our overview. So in this case, right, we were able to set the information, which was our detail view controller. In our movie cell, as we mentioned, we created this didSet method, which grabbed the information that we needed and set it to the appropriate outlets. Then we finally created our movie object, which serves as our model. As you can see, it's of type NS object. We created the properties that we needed, 4 of them in this case. And then we created 2 methods on this. We created the init method, which received a dictionary, grabbed all the information it needed from the dictionary, and assigned it to its own properties. So movie poster path, it was able to grab the poster path, as well as movie title, it was able to grab the title out of the dictionary and assign it to this. And finally, we created this class function on the movie class, which receives an array of dictionaries and returns an array of movie objects. And finally, it returns movie objects. So over here, movie dictionary, we use the init method, appended the movie to the movies variable right here, and then finally returned the movies variable. Great. So that was just a quick sort of walkthrough of how you would use make an API call, create a model, and store the necessary information from the API into our model, and display that in a table view controller. So in this case, this is what the working app looks like. We were able to hit the API, get all the information that we needed. In this case, we got 20 movies from the now playing endpoint of the IMDb API. And we have the poster image, we have the title, and then when we click on it, it takes us to a detail view, which has a backdrop image, a title, as well as the overview. Okay, so now let's try to debug the image and see what's going on with that. Okay, so it says optional here. So these are the 2 print statements that I just put in my right here, movie detail view. What I do, so it definitely seems to have the information that it needs, or does it? Let's see what that is. All right, cool. And I believe that's for Deepwater Horizon. Right? Okay. Wait a second. Right, that image should be right here. Okay. So it definitely has that image. It's saying here as well, set image with URL, backdrop image view dot set image with URL. If movie backdrop image with URL. Okay, interesting. Let's go back to our movie cell where it's setting this, and then right here let's print out. Let's print out movie. Another way to rewrite this, which I think would be better, is I can say if let movie path equals, what's that? In that case, do this along with movie path. So I need this. Let's get rid of that. Let's also print movie. And finally, so this is for every time it gets called. So it's going to print a lot of interesting. I wonder what's going on here. Did you guys see that? Oh, was it because I clicked on it? Okay, never mind. All right, print here, and then I'm going to also use string interpolation and be like, yo, print the movie path. All right, so let's run that. Right, so every time it sets the movie, interesting. So here you see that it's only doing the first 4, and then it's saying app transport security is blocked clear text HTTP. So in my info plist, so when you see this error, right, in your info plist, you need to add a new key that says app transport security right there. And then if you expand this up, add another, whoa dude, what's going on? All right, All right, allows arbitrary load. I haven't set it to yes. So I think it's complaining because if I don't add this exception, like it's not gonna, surprisingly, like it wouldn't have been let me hit the endpoint in the first place. I'm not sure why it's doing this, but hopefully if I add this, I think it should solve that image issue. All right, there we go. That's looking much better. Right, so it was not really a bug with the code. It was pretty much just adding that exception. And there's sort of two things you can add, two keys you can add. The first one is allows arbitrary load, and the second one is exception domains. Allows arbitrary load you can use if you don't really if you don't care too much about it, if you're just making it for development. Allows arbitrary load lets you set sort of like whitelist URLs, specific URLs that you can hit, that you know that are safe to hit, right? So in this case, we don't really care about it, so we're just going to do allows arbitrary loads. Great, so that definitely fixed it. Let's see if there's anything else that we need to fix. MovieGuide. Okay, so we see that there's 20 movies, and then for every movie there's a title. Interesting. So this one still says Snowden. Okay, so that one doesn't work. Crisis in 16, so that works fine. That one doesn't work. Interesting. I have a feeling this has to do with missing poster paths. That is definitely interesting. Crooked Man, Blair Witch. Okay. Yeah, so I think there are a couple exceptions there which you can look into further. But for the most part, I think all of it is looking good. Right? Okay, cool. So yeah, I think I'm going to end it there. So yeah, thanks for following along. See you.